It is Tuesday, rawmike.richards.com, and I promised the big build-up for the announcement I was going to make. And it's on a holding pattern. Look, it's just beyond my control. I was all excited. Actually, everyone's excited, but there are certain things, I guess, that have to be done first. So it is not today. So still broadcasting from 234 King Street East in downtown Toronto. That won't change. But from the Pacific Junction Hotel in our gorgeous glassed-in studio here on Beer Day. If you can get that 3-shot, I don't know if necessarily they can see it on the outside, but it's nothing but beer trucks.
Beer Truck Alley.
But I kind of like it. I like the smell. I love the smell of a bar. Dirty and
You've come to the right spot.
moldy, and you never know what people have done in there. The smell of sweat and the cheap perfumes.
Well, we are at the Pacific Junction Hotel. There's plenty of cheap perfume.
Yeah, and fluids. Let's just say fluids.
Yeah.
There was a big tip party last night. Russell, you were at that party too. Did you go crazy like did Angelina Jolie? Now, trust me, of the good dreams I've had, you know the dreams I'm talking about? Angelina's been in 2 of them, and they're really good. Even
That is a good one.
with the fake British accent that she has. You know what I'm talking about, right? See, there's another. There's beer guy right there. See, we should have a camera right there. He knows what I'm talking
beer
about.
guy.
Yeah, Angelina Jolie. You would though, right? You would, Angelina Jolie. Yeah. He's got to give the thumbs up on that one. Absolutely, you would. I said, even with the little chintzy fake accent, and I don't know, boy, I don't know why she does that, but I don't care.
Yeah, whatever.
It was in Calgary. It was bars in Calgary. For some reason, we'd be sitting there and say like, "Hey, so do you want steak?" I go, "I want something, but it's not in the menu." I mean, that's kind of how I talk in those dreams.
Yeah. Well,
Next thing you know, you're making out.
sounds like a story I heard just before we went on air.
I'm going to tell that story at some point. You know me, I share everything. It's but there's one part of it that's probably a little sensitive for some people. It may not.
There might be.
Russell, do you have a story like the story I was telling? No, you don't. I know you don't. He does not.
Do it.
No, he does not have that story.
Share the story.
Share the story. Share with friends. We've got a couple of announcements coming up, and a cool one on Thursday. And we're going to have lots of picks and lots of guests. So today, one of those days where, I'm looking at last night's football games, and here's my take on literally all of those games. Because first team offense and defense only has about, 8 seconds in the preseason?
Yeah, about that.
Some of those teams, New Orleans Saints, they looked like it was the first time literally that the quarterback has been on the same field as those receivers. Those receivers were running around. Like when you coach high school football, sometimes if it's junior football, not the senior team, some of these guys, Dave, are good athletes, but they never played football before. You know how complicated the game is. You played it.
Yep.
There's a lot of stuff going on. So what you try to do is break it down for the kids so they know what their task is and their task only. Like just as long as you do X and X, then Y and Y can do what they do. That's kind of how football is. That's kind of how it's coached. These guys last night, there was one point where Drew Brees throws it in the end zone. I think there were 3 guys in the same spot. Right? And I'm like, okay. What are the Saints known for? What is Drew Brees known for? Is putting points up. I mean, even if they lose, they're scoring 30, 40 points. Like last year, you look at the over, it'd be 50. If it wasn't 60, you probably were taking the over because they were going to give up a ton of points, but they were going to score a ton of points. Last night, they did not. So they absolutely struggled in that red zone. I don't think they were on the same page. I don't think they'll be that bad again. Again, what do you take away from week number 1's? We actually didn't go through that. Maybe today we could actually do that.
But the thing is,
because it's not a fair sample size, is what I'm saying.
No, it isn't, not yet. But the Saints are who they are. Yeah. They're a 7-9 team.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean?
I was going to say if they're 500, I think it's successful.
Yeah, very exactly. So they finished 7-9 for the last 3 years. I think they're good enough to finish 7-9 for a fourth straight year. And after this, they're going to have to make some decisions on how long do you keep a Sean Payton. Now, Sean Payton's a very good coach, and he's not going to be unemployed for long. But after a while, the message seems to wear a little bit. And you know what? It might be time for the two parties to split.
Well, last night, I guess the message from Adrian Peterson was, well, they're denying what they said to each other, that there was anything heated. Now, the one thing I would say about football sidelines is this stuff happens, Dave, all the time, every game almost.
Yes.
There are disagreements about what happens between players, between coaches, that isn't probably the upset that sometimes the national media, was it years ago? I want to say it was the Arizona Cardinals on the sidelines, and it might have been like Anquan Boldin or someone like that back in the day. Mm-hmm. And they said, "Oh no, it was Fitzgerald."
Okay,
it was Fitzgerald,
Larry.
And so they were like, "Oh, there was this big thing with the OC, with the offensive coordinator." I'm like, because there always is. Because I got news for you. In football, the receivers to them are always open. Always, they're never covered. And throw it to me. Just so you know, if there's receivers watching now, you tell me that that's not how it is. It is. You come back and you go, by the way, I was open. You weren't even on the last play. You were on the sidelines. Yeah, but I was open. So that's what it's like.
It's the truth.
It's true. I mean, it's like the quarterbacks, you just roll your eyes and go, oh, okay, here we go. 32 Razor Red on 2. But I'm open. Okay, so I'm open. That's what it is.
You haven't even lined up yet.
Yeah. You didn't even dress. You were in a suit. But just throw it to me. So I think there's a lot that will be made of this, whether you think, again, that Adrian Peterson isn't capable. Well, it remains to be seen. Because if we're just looking at week ones, then Sam Bradford is going to possibly be the MVP, and the Minnesota Vikings are going to the Super Bowl.
Sam Bradford was awesome yesterday.
Yeah, like over the top good. No, yes. I don't think he's terrible. Looking at him collegiately, what he did.
I haven't seen Sam Bradford this good since
college.
Since college. Yeah. That's how good this was. Now, before we shut the door on the Saints, I'm not gonna guarantee this or anything like this. But if you're the Saints, and if there's problems on the sidelines, considering that you have an Ingram and Kamara also in the backfield, are you tempted to cut an Adrian Peterson? Considering you're not using him anyway,
he doesn't cost him a whole bunch.
That's one. Of the factors,
That's one of the things, and they're thinking, because you really, again, if you go to week 3 and it would be something like this, then possibly something like that happens. That wouldn't surprise me, Dave.
Because there are teams that are probably interested in Adrian Peterson. I'm looking at you, New York Giants, and you will get more than 6 carries if you're on the Giants. On this team, you will not. On this team, Adrian Peterson's the 3rd best running back.
Yeah.
That's not good. That's good if you're right out of college and you're a 7th round draft pick out of, Tulsa.
Right.
And I'm talking about Northern Tulsa State.
I was going to say the Golden Hurricanes pretty good.
Yeah.
They also score 500 points a game.
I'm talking about their community college team that is Division 4.
You mean East Tulsa Southern State.
That's exactly it. That's great if you're the 3rd running back.
My God.
But if you're Adrian Peterson and you're used to 20 to 25 carries a game, you're not going to get it in this offense, and you're not going to get it in this backfield either.
Also, I want to say, all of a sudden, I want to go to Minnesota for a football game.
Mm-hmm.
That building, it looks amazing. Like if, and sorry, if you're going to get loaded in the building, get loaded in a good one.
Yep.
And that is a good one. Now, it's a lot of fun. And I will say this, for the weekend, and I think I've said this before, when we did, we covered an entry draft, the one that was in Minnesota. I think that was the Tyler.
Was that Taylor
entry draft? I think it might
I wasn't
have been.
at that one.
No. It was a lot of fun, and the people are like weirdly friendly, and they all talk. They have that accent that they have in Fargo. Like, oh, geez, yeah, hey, like that thing. They all do that.
Minus the accent, Minnesota is the Manitoba of the United States.
It's great. I like it. I loved it. I thought it was great. Because there is kind of a Canadian feel to it.
Very much so.
You've got that roast beef, the picture of the building. Now, for those of you who saw the game last night, you know what I'm talking about. But that glassed-in feature that they have on the roof.
It looks fantastic.
For Ziggy Wolf, like for what he's done for that city with respect to keeping a team in Minnesota, remember St. Paul, Minneapolis ain't that big.
Nope.
It's why, from time to time, the Twins, you're not sure if they're going to keep their team. Weren't they going to be given the heave-ho at one point?
Yes, they were. They were part of the contraction.
Contraction.
That
That's
they
right.
decided.
Yeah.
And that's where everybody started using contraction
Yeah,
as a
yes.
word.
I said, well, they're going to be constricted. What? They're going to be strangled? No, the baseball constriction. Yeah, it's not constriction, it's contraction. Oh. Either way, it's not good for the Twins. It's because small markets like that have a tougher time. And Ziegler Wolf has built this gorgeous stadium. So I don't know. To me, that reeks of road trip.
Honestly, that when you're in that building itself, from what I've been told, you feel like you're in Hollywood.
Yeah,
That's
gorgeous.
That's
building.
that's not Minnesota. You're in. You know what I mean? That. Yeah,
Speaking of Hollywood, could you find the? Now it's on my mind. I can't get it in my head. The Lara Croft, Tomb Raider, but Angelina Jolie, like the picture for the movie that she took, with her arms folded in the shorts and the stuff like that.
Do you like the gun on her leg?
Yes, I do.
Look
Dave.
with the knee-high socks.
Yeah, do you like it?
Yeah, it's okay.
No,
yeah, it's
you
good.
love it. Have you ever asked someone to dress up like that?
No,
Of course
Yes.
not. Yeah. Wonder if Vicky's ever seen that movie. Okay, moving right along. You're watching Raw Mike Richards, and is that a good? But make sure it's a good picture. Roast beef. Don't short me today, please. Don't be jealous. Oh, let's see that one. We should feature different shots all day of. Wow, look at that! Come on, that's so good. Okay, so here's the question. So your what's his face? Who am I thinking of? Who's the husband? Or maybe they're not husband and wife.
The former husband, Brad Pitt.
Brad Pitt. Okay,
Yeah,
so they're not together now?
They're not together. They're single. They're both single.
Is that because one day he comes in and he goes, "Oh, what, another African kid?" Like, you gotta wonder at some point why. I mean, that'd be hard trying to get rid of it. But do you like Angelina Jolie? If you're listening out there's your Twitter question of the day. So
Okay, Twitter question.
You're
of the
Brad
day.
Pitt. You're Brad Pitt, and you got a choice between Angelina Jolie
Or The Field.
or Jennifer Aniston, because and he also had Gwyneth Paltrow too in the beginning.
Yeah, she's out of the competition for me.
She's out, eh?
Yeah,
I do. I'm not a blonde, but I do like her.
Out of the 3 stars there.
She's got great legs. I saw her at that Iron Man 3. There was these pictures of her on the red carpet.
I did not see that.
We'll find those two. Find legs, Gwyneth Paltrow.
Is that what you're that's what you're
London,
looking for right now?
London, Iron Man 3 or something, and you take a look at these legs and you tell me. Now back to the sports.
Yes, the sports.
Yeah, the sports.
Do it.
Yeah.
Minnesota wins, by the way, only by 10. So Minnesota was your number because they closed at 3.5 before kickoff.
Yes.
Which was great if you're betting Minnesota. Not so great if you're betting New Orleans in the late game. 24-21, Denver wins. And Tom Harley's favorite team, the Denver Broncos.
Is he a Bronco guy?
He is a Bronco guy, yeah.
Really?
Well, I always tell him that he's a weak ass impression of like John Elway's cousin. He kind of has that look without the buck teeth.
Okay, that one I didn't see coming, but
You
I'll
didn't
go
see
with
that.
it.
You didn't see that
If
one,
you
eh?
like, no.
So
That was a push, that number, by if you took the 3, it was a push.
It was a push on the 3.5 was the winner on the Chargers side of things. Nothing really to report, Mike. It was kind of like Phillip Rivers threw for under 200 yards, which is unheard of. But
remember
3 touchdowns.
I said about anger?
Yes.
I said third quarter,
Did it come in?
I should win the pool.
Anger.
He wanted a flag on the play, didn't get it, and he had a meltdown. I'm like, there you go. Taking the prop bet, third quarter.
Phillip Rivers and his 8 kids.
Yeah, okay, so, by the way, there's no stockings in the picture that she's got. It's no stockings. I'm trying to think what she was wearing. Now, that's good, but you're ripping me off. No, there were some real pervy paparazzi guys. By the way, we're going to take a look at paparazzi later on the show with Caitlyn Jenner. Now, Caitlyn Jenner maybe gets in the van, but the individual driving away
Brewster?
was Bruce.
Brewster, yeah.
I don't think Caitlyn would have done what the driver did. That was Bruce driving. I don't know. Does it work that way? Maybe it does. I don't know. Don't yell at me. I don't know what's going on.
The many sides of Jenner.
Yeah. These pictures, by the way, if you're looking for, they're outside. She's outside. They're not inside in front of the gala.
So you actually know where these pictures were taken.
Oh,
too?
I saw it. I
Wow,
thought,
it's-
where is this? No, it's too good. I'm going to put it on our Facebook page today.
Okay, you never answered the question. The 3 girls, where are you going? I think I'm siding Jennifer Aniston.
I'm just really attracted to Angelina Jolie.
Okay.
Like in
Sometimes she looks good. Sometimes she looks like a dog's
yeah. Well,
breakfast,
that's
though.
the thing. So I'm thinking of the Lara Croft vintage.
Okay.
because but she's, I don't know, she's
So
just,
you want her wearing that outfit 24/7.
or
It's not a bad
not
look.
even that.
Or not even the
Not
outfit.
even that.
Okay.
Yeah. Excuse me, my middle name is Boing. Oh, that's real funny. Yeah, you heard me. Yeah, the phones are buzzing now.
Apparently.
Oh, if it's Angelina,
No,
my God,
apparently
please.
my wife says that Jennifer Aniston is Greek.
That is true.
Is it?
Because I think, yeah,
And
John,
Greek,
yeah.
and Greek girls are apparently the best.
I'm not going to lie about that.
Yeah, you're okay with that?
I'm not gonna lie about
Okay.
that.
Yeah, I agree with that one.
Irene always watches the show, does she?
Once in a while. Yeah, no,
You're watching
you
rawmiterich.com.
got to be careful.
And coming up, flowers and poems. Things that you should be saying to your wives and girlfriends. Hopefully you've subscribed to the YouTube channel. We see that people are doing that. We appreciate that.
You know what? I check this number every single day, and it keeps on going up, and that's fantastic.
A little bit.
Thank you, everybody
Yes.
out there. And tell your friends about it, and tell your friends' friends to do it too, and your
share.
neighbor.
When you see something, share it.
Yeah,
share
share.
with your friends.
Hey, feel free to retweet something, people.
Yeah.
You lazy.
Yeah, stop it. We do so much for you, and you do nothing for us. Boy, where'd that come from? Yeah, the Denver game, a push. But the problem for me still is week number 1, half these teams, they look like exactly what has been practiced, which is first team gets some reps. They don't play in the preseason games. Now they get in there. Well, even like, how much time do you think Tom Brady got?
Most of the teams, but the thing
Yeah.
is, can you say that about the Kansas City Chiefs?
We'll see. But
Can you say that about the Minnesota Vikings?
Here's-
the Vikings look like they were in a week 10.
here's truly what I think, though,
They were
Dave.
great.
Who do you think, in starting the season, in terms of a starting quarterback, who had the biggest chip on his shoulder?
At the start of the year.
If Alex Smith
Alex
isn't number
Smith-
1,
Alex
he's
Smith
in the
is in
top,
there.
3.
Alex Smith is in there just because as soon as they draft Patrick
Patrick
Mahomes
yeah.
the second
Yeah.
with the 10th pick, that's when it started.
Well, he was pissed off. He's like, he goes, "Hey, you watching the draft? Not really, really, honey, because they drafted they're watching. They drafted a quarterback. What?
the first round pick.
Fuck? Where? From where? Southeastern Nevada State Youth. What? No, Patrick Mahomes obviously doesn't come from that. But when Alex Smith, number 1, Utah, goes to San Francisco, loses his job there. Like, I mean,
To
he's-
Colin Kaepernick.
Yes. So he's constantly been pushed out for a guy who's got a lot of pride. And look, he's always been, I've said it a million times, even talking in the conversation we had with Jesse Palmer about who this guy is. He is and should have been a winner on some team.
Yes.
Now, Andy Reid, I think, can make this thing work. So if you're waiting for Patrick Mahomes, who they all think is the next Brett Favre, everyone's always the next someone. And when it comes to quarterbacks, I'd be very careful about calling someone the next anything. Of all the quarterbacks who've come out that we said were generational, I can tell you that the one that got that term the most was Andrew Luck. Now, I'm not saying that he wasn't worthy of that status, because I certainly was. I like the guy. He's got all the things and all the hereditary and the lineage that you need that would tell you coming out of Stanford that he was going to be that guy. Here's Indy's problem. They didn't protect him that well.
Nope.
The offensive line wasn't that great.
Terrible.
So now he's out. And look at them. They got whipped by the Rams. I mean, so week number 1 to me, if I'm taking a look at teams that have done their work, maybe that's the way I'll put it. Well, and we're going to talk to, I get confirmed by our special guest also on on Friday, about those kinds of things because he played in the show. Is that, to me, it always seems like those that have spent time and have done their work, maybe a little more motivated than others, it kind of shows. And I think that's why Bill Belichick kind of did that fake coach speak. We weren't very good. We were out-coached.
We're on to Cincinnati.
Yeah, we just weren't good enough. But do you think that? No, you're not talking. Like, I'd hate those. I mean, if there's like, hey, Mike, we're going to give you a job. It's with the, I don't know, big newspaper, which of course I wouldn't do. But let's just say I wanted that job. And it's like, and you get to cover the New England Patriots every game. Every game?
And the practices, too.
Yeah, wow. You know what? I'm busy. A lot of TV on. I think Game of Thrones is coming up soon. Ballers is fun. I couldn't imagine like who's the equivalent.
very tough.
Who's the equivalent in the NHL? Was Ron Wilson that bad? Or
Well, I worked under Ron Wilson's regime the first year, and he was okay for the first couple of weeks, and then it started turning into what we've come to see with Ron Wilson throughout his NHL
because they're like
career.
battles, right?
They are battles,
Yeah.
yeah, and he gets personal, But see, Belichick doesn't sit there and quote
Personal. How do you mean personal? What's he do?
Well, I remember distinctly a couple of times him approaching me in front of media, poking fun at something I said on the TV the day before, or the night before.
So this isn't even a press conference. This is him trying to mock you in front of.
Oh yeah.
Your peers.
Absolutely. Now that only happened a couple of times,
But more than once.
yes. But
So not a mistake.
no, but the guy he really, really lambasted on several levels was Howard Berger at the time. But Howard had a tendency of, which I love him to this day, of saying exactly what he wanted to say, and he'd throw a lot of like when I'm doing a TV report, I have to state, I can't sit there and say, in my opinion, I don't think Curtis Joseph's, like I can't say
It's not an editorial.
No, Howard Berger can do that
Yeah.
when he had his position at the Fan. So there was a number of times where Ron Wilson would sit there and say, well, who do you think I should start in goal, Howard? Or something of that.
I can see that. I can see that because I did have Howard on when I was in Calgary.
Yeah.
And I will say this too. For
Howard's a great guy, by the way. I have a lot of time
so do
for
I.
Howard
So do
Berger.
I. Get him in here sometime. He's got great stories.
Actually, it would be a
Yeah.
very good idea
It'll do-
considering Leafs are planning the parade. We'll get to that in a
Yeah.
bit. And
Steve Simmons, who also at times, gets ripped quite a bit, and
deservedly so.
And then Brian Burke, he said, "I'm
that
not going to
was
miss you."
classic.
Yeah, I'm not going to miss you. But the thing is with Steve, and I'll give him credit for this. Whatever he says, and let's say it's about you, it's about a player, it's about a coach or whatever. The next day, he's standing right in front of you,
Yeah,
like whether you agree with him or not.
yeah.
At least he sat there, and I saw him take it so bad from Don Cherry in the hallway of the Fan back when it was 14:30. They're doing this big 25-year thing. They're kind of skipping over some parts, to be honest.
Yeah.
I guess they're not talking to me, but which I thoroughly enjoyed my time with myself and John Derringer, which a lot of you know. But there was one time where Steve had said something about a player, and here comes Grapes down the hallway because he just finished with Brian Williams, so it was Grapevine.
Grapevine, yeah.
Grapevine. And so he comes down, he had in Don, this big workout pants on, like the leopard, big baggy things, and then the leather coat with like the kind of the football sleeves
Oh,
and,
yeah.
and I think a ball cap. And he comes marching down that hallway at 40 Holly Street, and I'm standing there kind of talking to Steve a little bit, and he comes in. And the language you think, let me fucking talk to you for a second, hey? I mean, you fucking, he looks over and he goes, hey, Mikey, how's it going? Hey, good. Listen to me, you little cocksucker. Like, it was going on and on. He goes, first of all, where'd your coats? Nowhere and everything. So 0. And he went through the whole thing. And Steve he was taking a beating, but didn't back down on his statement. He just stated his point.
Yeah.
And then he got verbally abused by Grapes. And then Don turns to me and goes, hey, see you later there, Mikey boy. And then goes back down the hallway. I'm like, wow. Like Steve, covered in spit and saliva. Like it was just, he took it like a manager that's giving it to an umpire that close. And I'm right in between them because I can't move. I'm sandwiched in between this. It was unbelievable. But Steve, that's what he's always done. So I know a lot of people don't, like him for different reasons. But I will say this, to have the courage to do it, because there was guys like William Houston who said all kinds of crazy stuff.
And never showed up.
Never showed up, was never there. He was up in his cottage in Muskoka or whatever. Paul Romanuk has a story, and this is true because it's documented, so I don't mind saying it. Paul lost his parents, and he was adopted. The Children's Aid Society placed him in that home, and he lost his parents 1 month between each other. And he wrote a poem. William Houston said, stick to your day job in the newspaper. Better stick to your day job.
Holy smokes.
What a fucking asshole.
Yeah, big time.
So William doesn't like me because every time he'd write about him, I think he got confused. I think he confused with me and Jim Richards. Like he'd say stuff, I'm like, what are you talking about? I never met the guy, I never talked to him. and he's been in the business for years. People probably don't know who I'm talking about. But that's the nature of that world. You're watching RawMikeRichards.com on the dedicated YouTube channel or on the website.
Let's throw up that Sun article. Speaking of Steve Simmons, and get into the hockey bit. I got some stuff.
Okay,
to say
is
about
there?
this.
Because I think there's some excitement here in Toronto.
There is some excitement.
This is the front page. Is it the front page
in the sports section.
in the sports section?
Yeah. So plan the parade. Where have we heard this before? I don't.
They can't help. They're excited, Dave. They're excited people.
Okay, let me stop everybody.
There are fun
right now.
people here in Toronto. You know that.
Let me read off some names right now.
Okay.
Gardner, Zaitsev, Hainsey, Marincin, Carrick, Riley.
That sounds like a Stanley Cup to me, Dave.
You will never, ever, ever win a Stanley Cup with those players. If those players are part of a Stanley Cup roster, I will move to China. Okay, I will move to China tomorrow if that is a Stanley Cup roster and those 6 names are on the Stanley Cup. I'll tell you another thing about this.
But Hainsey's going, I won one.
yeah, by an accident. By an accident. He wasn't even supposed to buy. Also, you will never see a scenario where Frederik Andersen is holding a Stanley Cup as a member of the Toronto Maple Leafs. That will never, ever happen. I understand that they have something going on offense, and it's fantastic. It's great. They actually have 9 forwards on this team, and the fourth line isn't too bad either. But the defense has to be renovated from almost top to bottom. I don't even know if I'd call Morgan Riley a second defenseman on a Stanley Cup team, because I don't think he's good enough to be a second defenseman on a Stanley Cup winning team. Look at the Stanley Cup winners of the past. He is not that quality player that everybody thought he was going to be when he came out of junior. And if you want to look at his offensive stats, they're terrible. He scored 3 goals last year. That was putrid. And Martin Marincin isn't a National Hockey League player. Connor Carrick is a borderline NHL player. It just, there's so many holes there, Mike.
But talk about that for a second. I want to jump in here because sometimes you talk about the 8 definite players that you need to win a championship.
Yes.
And if you're starting in goal, if you're saying that's not the
you don't have
and I agree.
You don't have
how many by position? How many players are the Leafs away from maybe getting a parade?
Well, in the Pierre Maguire world, they're missing that key goaltender.
So the goal, I agree. The goaltender for sure.
They're missing the shutdown defenseman.
Yep.
They're missing the offensive-minded defenseman. They have the stud center. They have a very, very good center. They have probably a top 3 center in the world. Eventually, not yet, but eventually, they have the right wingers as far as the William Nylanders, the Mitch Marners, Connor Brown chipping in on the third line with 20 goals is fantastic. They're missing grit as far as the gritty winger that is going to score 25 to 30 goals and hit everything in sight. So they're missing Brendan Shanahan when Brendan Shanahan was in the NHL with the Detroit Red Wings. That's the key piece they're missing as far as what you're missing up front on offense. But good enough to challenge for the Atlantic Division? Yeah, because the Atlantic Division sucks. The Atlantic Division is terrible. Montreal has a goaltender, and that's it. Ottawa Senators accidentally got to the conference final, and after that, well, you know what? Honestly, maybe the biggest team to worry about this year was a team that missed the playoffs last year in Tampa Bay. Because I think Tampa Bay is the best team in the Atlantic Division, but we'll see about that because it's going to be a pretty good matchup this year with the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Now, you just mentioned the Ottawa Senators. Did they not just get some bad news?
Yeah, some terrible news. Yeah. Great news if you're a Maple Leafs fan, though. Great news. Erik Karlsson, are you ready for it? Erik Karlsson will not be ready for the start of the NHL season. Oh. Expected to be in the lineup somewhere in November.
Oh my.
We're great on these. This is we're like mid-season. We're like Sam Bradford right now. That's how good we are with this. The foot hasn't healed properly after surgery, so that's great news for the rest of the division. Great news for Brent Burns as well, as he's going to win his second Norris Trophy. So if you're looking at prop bets, bet on Brent Burns winning the Norris Trophy for a second consecutive year. Some other news in the NHL quickly. Friend of the show, Daniel Winnick, signs a PTO with the Minnesota Wild. He'll make that team as a fourth-line checker. Also, news out of Seattle, and guess what? Seattle's going to be the next NHL team. The mayor of Seattle, Ed Murray, has tentatively agreed with the group called Oakview Group, who's led by...
I'm giving you that's like breaking news.
Breaking news.
When news happens, rawmike.richards.com is there. And now let's go to the breaking news desk with Dave Bastel.
Tim Lywicki heads up the group, and where have you heard that name before?
Oh, he's excellent.
The hired gun.
Yeah.
So they've tentatively agreed to build a new arena in Seattle for $660 million. It's supposed to be ready for use by 2020, thus opening up another team in the NHL in the Pacific Northwest. And also, more importantly, if you're looking at the structure of the two conferences, you need more teams in the Western Conference. This will even things out. The team I feel, or I should say the city I feel worst about is Quebec.
Yep.
Because I want the Nordiques to return to Quebec. It's not going to happen just yet. Seattle will be getting an NHL team in the next couple of years.
Raw Mike Richards breaking news brought to you by Pennzoil. Pennzoil. That's the oil you're looking for. Okay. We mentioned that obviously that it is TIFF. It is the Toronto International Film Festival. We had Sean Menard, who had the film, the debut the other night, couldn't get tickets for it, called The Carter Effect. There's a picture, actually, I think it was on a couple of blogs in the newspaper, of Drake and LeBron having a little cheers with each other before the movie started. Well, we're lucky again today. So Matt Embry is in today. And if those who know someone living with MS, have been diagnosed with MS, and, you know, sometimes I think really the education part of it, and where we really don't know necessarily the identification of it, even if it's someone close. Like, for instance, Jenna Holbrook, who I worked with in Calgary, told me about that, and I was very, very much upset. Well, this is a different take on this. Matt Embry, who also was the director and writer for Theo Fleury's Playing with Fire, who obviously we know Theo very well. So he's going to come in next. His film debuts, the premiere is tonight. A fancy debut,
That's
red
fantastic,
carpet.
yes.
I've been talking about Angelina Jolie all morning, just so you know. So, Matt, I am really looking forward to that. So we're going to take a look at his work. Then we're going to talk to him about something that is very, very different, and we're really excited to have him in here. We talk to Matt Embry on rawmikeRichards.com next.
Once that switch is on, it's just a countdown.
Multiple sclerosis remains a mystery. No cure exists.
You have MS and you're done, right?
We don't want that for anybody.
All of a sudden, I get a phone call that Matt had been diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. I literally almost collapsed. I mean, I couldn't believe it.
Well, you're like looking right in the eye of it. That's the darkness, right?
Immediately your mind starts thinking, okay, we have to try and figure out what the heck's going on.
Where the industry wants to go is produce a drug, and that becomes their product.
It just felt, what a scam.
$6,000 a month for a drug that does nothing?
It's up to the MS Society to marshal hope.
Drug companies have a conflict of interest. They want to sell their drugs and they need somebody to promote it. The MS Society is a good vehicle to do that through.
Eventually it's gonna kill me. Just help me, man.
My brother researched every aspect of this.
Science is it all. To me, you gotta have hard science. That's it.
The prescription that it's only downhill is not correct.
A Calgary man diagnosed with MS is speaking out tonight.
He and his father are now setting out on a free speaking tour.
This is information you're not going to get from your neurologist or the MS Society.
They're not going to let you keep saying what you're saying without trying to squash you.
I am holding a letter that was sent to me from the Multiple Sclerosis Society threatening me with a potential lawsuit. Tonight is about hope, and we're going to get some MS hope on board, all right?
Once again, that is Living Proof, the film debuting tonight, premiering at the Toronto International Film Festival. Matt Embry joins us here at rawmikeRichards.com. Thanks for coming in, Matt.
All right. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
You know, something like this, generally we talk to a director or a producer and say, so how did you become involved? What is your connection with it? Well, there's no bigger connection than when you're diagnosed.
Right.
And you can't even say affliction. Could you say affliction? What do you say? Is disease? Yeah. What is the proper term?
Yeah, I mean, multiple sclerosis is a disease, right? And right now, MS societies around the world, and the conventional understanding is that there's no cause and no cure.
Because, yeah, there's a lot of unknown. I think about it. I mean, there's so many people that I know that have been in my life where they get diagnosed in their 30s. Would that be kind of accurate? Because yours was younger than that.
Yeah, it was much younger than that. But you're right. The average person is diagnosed in the better years of their life in their 30s or early 40s.
So how old were you?
I was 19 years old and I was diagnosed.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And now, can you take us into that? How that actually happened, Matt? Were you feeling something? Did you just go to a doctor for a routine check? Like, can you take us into that?
Yeah. No. I mean, it's exactly that. The symptoms came on very suddenly, where all of a sudden I had some numbness and hypersensitivity in my foot. I was kicking a basketball, and suddenly couldn't really feel the ball, and then symptoms started to progress quite quickly.
So it feels numb when you kick the ball.
Right. And I thought that I'd had a stroke. I think I came upstairs and told my parents I think I had a stroke, and then they slowly the symptoms kept going. Suddenly leg spasms came in, and then within a couple of weeks we knew we had to get to the doctor.
Yeah.
So your emotion when they did you even know what that was when they tell you at 19? Did you have any idea when they say that?
Well, I mean, I think I probably like you guys. I didn't know any of the science of anything like that, but then you have images of your head of Annette Funicello and like the Richard Pryors, right, and how devastating the disease can be. So it was a lot of fear back then, for sure.
So and we should give a little background too on exactly when we're talking to Matt. Your dad does what for a living?
He's a PhD, and he was a research scientist for the Geological Survey of Canada.
Wow. So this is a learned man who's probably, I mean, it's still a son, so there's obviously some obviously personal pain, right. But there's a lot of education behind that. So I'd have to think in your circumstance, with that kind of knowledge, that's not something that everybody has. It must have been a huge boon to you to have this.
Yeah, I was very, very fortunate. And my dad and I were also really close growing up. I mean, he was my basketball coach in high school.
Oh.
So it was that type of relationship, right? And so when he went off to the medical library and started doing his independent research, when he came home and said, look, you're doing this, I did it. Right, so there wasn't a lot of questions, and I was still young. I was like, "All right, I'm going to do this." Right, and I just didn't. To be honest, I didn't even think about it. Dad says to do this, I'm doing it.
Yeah. So and not to fast forward to today, but putting together this project, obviously, it's obviously close to you. How do you decide that I want to present this? I want to get this out there, because it's not only is it great, but it's also it could be a very helpful tool to a lot of other people that are kind of going through the same sort of thing. Right.
And I think that once I hit that 20-year mark, right, once I was 20 years of symptom free, I thought, okay, this is a story people are going to pay attention.
It's remarkable, is what it is.
Yeah,
right.
it's.
I mean, because I was speaking on this, back all the way back to 1997, 98. But people don't take you very seriously when you're 5, 10, even 15 years. But when you hit that 20-year mark, people will listen. And the thing is, you also don't wake up in the morning and look at yourself in the mirror and go, I'm going to be an activist.
Right.
Right?
Right.
No. It's just
nobody. Well, I say nobody, but
yeah, I mean, it's not something you decide to do. But when you see things that aren't right, or you see information that you want to share with other people and families to give them hope, you meet other people who are doing similar strategies that are working, you want to get the information out there.
Right.
So then the question is, how do you do it? Right. So, and that's, where I've been fortunate to be a filmmaker and to have been able to understand that films can really affect people.
So how many years is it exactly?
It's 22 years now.
So 22 years. So the prognosis for most people after 22 years would be what? Wheelchair?
Well, it's hard to know. I mean, by this stage, normally, I think it's around, walker, cane, right, for a high percentage of the MS population.
So for people watching here or downloading on iTunes later on today, MS by definition is what? Is it a deterioration? What exactly is the disease? What does it do?
Yeah, so what it does is it breaks down the myelin sheath that surrounds your nerves. And what this does slowly is you start to become debilitated. So you slowly start to lose motor control. It goes into motor paralysis. There's cognitive impairment, and then ultimately, the complications that come from that can be death.
So the fact that it's 22 years in, no one in this room or anywhere would know that you have anything. There's nothing that says to me that you are afflicted by anything. So what have you done? What is, and by the way, I'm not going to say miracle, because if someone has done the homework and the groundwork on this, then it's not a miracle. It exists.
Right. And the thing is, the key strategies that I've implemented are diet, vitamin D, high dose vitamin D, which is the sunshine vitamin.
Yes.
And exercise. And this is, I've got a website, mshope.com, which is free for people to look at. We go into this, and these are science-based strategies. And the thing is, with the documentary, it's funny because I could be a one-off, right? It could just be me. And this is where the documentary was important for us to tell the story, because it's not just me. And the patient population out there who are doing the same thing, who have similar stories, don't necessarily have a voice in the media. So the question is, how do we reach those people? How can they tell their stories to get the information out there? And most importantly, how do we hit that new patient population who's just been diagnosed and say, okay, wait, there's other solutions possibly. There's other things, information you need.
How many a day? Like, what are we talking about in terms of those being, diagnosed? What are we looking at on a yearly basis?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be able to answer that.
But it's more than people probably would realize. This
Right.
is not a rarity. This is not a rare disease.
Yeah, there's about 250,000 people in Canada with it, yeah.
Now, what about big pharmaceutical companies? They may not be enjoying this particular documentary.
Yeah, I mean, this is, we definitely challenge the pharmaceutical approach. I mean, I think that, patients have to question, and the average taxpayer needs to question. I mean, you need to question. I mean, these drugs are very expensive drugs. They have a whole series of side effects.
Like, what could a person pay in terms of monies for medicines in a year, for instance, if you have MS?
I think it can range between about 30 to 15,000 all the way to 70,000.
Wow.
Right. Wow. The 70,000 range being the Mercedes-Benz of the pharmaceuticals, right? And so, and not that I want to spoil the movie, but we go ask some really tough questions to the top experts in the world in multiple sclerosis about the long-term effects of the drugs. So the questions we ask is, okay, if I took the drug, what is my level of disability going to be like compared to the person who didn't take the drug over, say, 15 to 20 years, right? And we didn't care for what we found. And I think that people are going to really pay attention, and it's important for people to see this film, just so the average person can ask some tough questions, and for MS patients to start asking the neurologist some tough questions.
How many people did you talk to? We were talking to a TIFF director last week that said, you know what, it's a never-ending thing, because it's almost like you have the puzzle,
right?
And the puzzle maybe starts off like this, and then at the end of it, you're looking at this.
Right,
you're looking at double. Like, what are we talking about for length of time putting this together? People talk to, families, because it's not all about the person. It's, excuse me, it's about everybody else behind it as well.
That's right. I mean, we shot for more than a year.
See, that's crazy. A year project.
Right. Overall shooting, and then we shot at least over 100 people we spoke to. And the thing is, you're right. It's almost like a pinball, where it's like you meet
maybe that's
someone,
a better way of saying
right?
it. Yeah.
And all of a sudden, it takes you to another doctor, and that takes you to another patient, and then a family, and then you start. There's some. We knew obviously there were some key characters, especially in the medical profession, like key doctors we need to speak to give us that scientific legitimacy.
Sure.
Right. But through that, that's where the surprises came in.
How long is the documentary?
It's 97 minutes.
97 minutes.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Sorry, Mike.
Well, it's interesting because Alan Park is, as those who watch the show know, that he came in within the first month and change on RaulMacRichards.com. He's known for being a stand-up comic, and he was on the Royal Canadian Air Force. It's that point where his bones, as he said, he was in the gym. They just didn't feel well. He kept going back to the doctors, and they said, take a leave, take like just over-the-counter stuff. He goes back at some point because he feels like the bones are literally coming out of his sockets. He has stage 4 cancer. He has nowhere to go. They're not going to operate. There'll be no radiation, and there'll be no chemotherapy. They gave him like 6 weeks. And he immediately goes to cannabis oil, the one that's rendered down. He has his own podcast because of the interview he did on this show. People, both pro and obviously con, because when you start talking about alternative medicines or lifestyles, whether it's holistic or, people, number one, think that you're saying that the only way to survive is your way.
Right.
But I think what you're doing, just like Alan did, he's not saying that. He's not saying don't take chemo, don't take radiation, don't take the operation. What he's saying is, and he had no options. Like, as you know, watching the show, Alan had no alternative but to find an alternative. And I think for those that will go and see your documentary, You're saying this is a path that you have chosen.
Right.
And it has worked for you.
Correct.
Maybe it doesn't work for everybody.
Right.
But at least, Matt, it's an option.
That's exactly it. And I'm not going to pretend that I'm a doctor or a research scientist, and I'm not telling people to stop their medications or the approach that they're taking. And you're exactly right. I'm standing up and saying, look, these are the strategies that I've done. I'm living proof at 22 years of what it's done for me. Yeah. And here's some other stories that maybe you should look at. And I think that, to your point, multiple sclerosis is the flashpoint for this film. It's the disease that we talk about. But really, this is a story of for anyone who's diagnosed with any illness and any autoimmunity where there's no cause, there's no cure, they don't have any answers. It's that quest of, okay, I have to take the accountability for my own health, get out there, start talking to the patient population, talking to doctors and possibly doctors in other disciplines about what are my solutions and what's going to work for me.
We are now the national spokesperson for Epilepsy Canada. That happened just about, a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
So I can guarantee you when we send this out today, we will be linking those people up as well. Because as you said, it's other doctors, it's other people who have other things that, it's just education.
Right.
So why would your approach not also work in other cases for people who have, other diagnoses?
Right.
Like that's why I think these things and this film festival is so awesome. Not just because I think Angelina Jolie might be in town, and if she is, I'll be there. And it's not good. That's a documentary for another time, and it's not for everyone. I'm just saying it. It's different. But boy, you get the most interesting subject matter, and because I think it's going to be wildly successful. I just know it is. But in terms of getting into the festival,
right?
Like you can't have this competition like, well, whose disease is worse, or what is the criteria for getting in when you have a doc like this?
Yeah, that's a really tough question to answer because more or less you're submitting blind.
Yeah.
Right. You don't. I'm at the level. I'm from the West. I didn't necessarily have the kind of connections to be able to in that world. So we you literally submit online. So you fill out the application and
really?
you submit and you
That's crazy.
It is.
It's an audition to get into.
Yeah. And you hope for the best. And when we got that phone call, the team was stunned.
That's awesome.
And thrilled. Suddenly you go from, even though I'm from Calgary and it's a Canadian film, we shot all over the world. It's an international picture that way. But now we're on the international stage. And that's what TIFF offers, where suddenly the world's going to be paying attention to your work.
It is big.
Yeah.
Now, you also have a body of work. We talked about you being in or directing. Did you write it as well, Playing with Fire?
Yeah, I was one of the writers on that as well.
So Theo, I know very well from my time in Calgary.
Right.
And you talk about do you want to be an activist or not? Well, I think at some point with his sobriety, he felt that he had really no other alternative but to live the life he's doing right now.
Right.
And that movie is a huge part of it. And here's what I love about that movie, because he kept saying, "Did you read did you read the book? Did you do this? Did you that?" I'm going, "No, I didn't. No, I'm not reading. Will William Shatner come out and play in a movie or something like? I just give him a hard time." And then I see the film. Not only does it deal with a really difficult subject matter, like really hard, and then when you know someone. Because I got to know him post all this stuff.
Right.
Now I got to go back and relive what he went through. That's real hard when you're friends with somebody. But what I loved about the film is that Theo talks the way Theo talks.
Right.
And then, what's her name? The figure skater who I haven't stalked her, but she's been on the show a bunch of times. Pelche and Jamie Sallet. Because they were in that Skating with the Stars.
Right.
And then she starts talking like him, dropping F-bombs everywhere.
Right.
I'm going, I am so excited right now with this film because it naturally just comes out. Now, completely different from what this is.
Right.
How did you handle both the ability, and this is really how I found that film, to be really heavy because it's a very tough subject matter, but also it has its own charm because it captures his influence on people. It captures who the guy really is because he's a different cat. Yeah. And so it's not an hour of, oh my God, this is terrible. in fact, it comes across quite the different way. How did you achieve that? Because it really, in that way, is a unique film, I think.
Yeah, I mean, thank you. I mean, that was a really great project to work on with Theo, and a lot of that, a lot of those moments you're talking about, that gem, these moments where he's walking into a parkade, and all of a sudden, these guys are just overwhelmed to see him, right? And these genuine moments, a lot of that was just time. Right, and it was like we were so fortunate that he opened up his world to us,
and he does not shy about it.
And that's rare, and people have to understand that for a star, a celebrity of that stature, to let us into his hotel room at 6 and 7 in the morning in New York City after traveling, after his speaking tours, that's not easy. Yeah. And like you saw the film, and I saw it personally, that was exhausting for him to what he was working, just even the work he was doing on stage, and then the media, and then to have me sitting in there with a camera in his face, like you don't want to see that first thing in the morning, right? Yeah. But he did it, and there's hours on the cutting room floor for a picture like that.
And you're asking some of the worst subject matter in terms of its questions.
Yeah,
you're asking it.
That's right.
Like, I'd find it hard even having that come out of my mouth, I think.
Right. Yeah.
But it is the story. You can't avoid it.
That's right.
That's why you made the film.
Yeah, and he was, he went there, right? And again, that's time, and that's trust, and that's
big time trust,
right? And
big time trust,
and making sure that we're going to try to make those scenes as accurate as possible, and to tell his story. And and I've said this before. I mean, watching what he did, right? To watch him on stage, because there's Theo behind the scenes, right? And we know Theo behind the scenes, and then you see him on stage, and then you see the after effect. Like, you see him changing lives. I mean, you see the lineups and the look on people's faces, right? And that was interesting to watch, because you could see it draining him, right? But then you could see the power it was having on the people who were showing up. And so for me, in the spine of our film, this new one, in a lot of ways was inspired by that journey, where we went on a speaking tour, because I watched it. I thought, this works.
Yeah.
He puts himself out there. He goes and talks about the issue. It's not easy for him to say it over and over, to relive that story, but he's doing it for a greater good.
Mm-hmm.
Gave me the inspiration to say, I can do this too.
Yeah. And with tonight's documentary debuts at TIFF, I always ask people what happens after TIFF with it. Where can the person that isn't able to get into this theater this week, or however many days it is it going to be distributed anywhere, and where can we find it, Matt?
Right. I mean, that's a great question, because one of the most important things about Living Proof is we want the patient population globally to be able to see it.
Exactly.
Right. And so, yes, we're doing a world premiere. We festival in Calgary next week. I think there's a screening in Vancouver. I don't want to say too much, but right now we're negotiating an international deal.
Good.
Where people will be able to access it.
Because you want more than the 2,000 people that are going to be at the premiere,
exactly,
or whatever it works out to, right?
That's right.
So,
so we'll put that on my Facebook and all that type of thing.
I see that our good friend Jeremy Piesaker is with you. Yeah, I really is he doing the negotiation? Because I gotta you're gonna have to count the money.
Well, yeah, you got. What I'm also finding when a guy like Jeremy Piesaker shows up, right? I mean, this is a testament to how quickly an entourage forms, right?
Oh, trust me, I've seen it.
Yeah,
I've seen it up close. Going, how come there's just 5 other guys at my house? Right. Oh, don't worry about it. Don't worry about
it.
They're fans. Matt, thanks so much for coming in today. Thrilled to have you. And again, looking at sort of the subject matter, which again, it's the ability to not be afraid to share.
Right.
It's got to be tough, I think, at times where, you realize what the potential and the downfall of is, because it's not going away.
Right.
You have MS, and that's with you until your last days. But you've approached it in such a different way that, as you mentioned with Theo, it becomes a tool, and it'll be really interesting to see just how far this thing goes, because I think it's going to go far.
Awesome.
I think it's going to be great. Thanks so much, Matt. I appreciate it.
You.
That is Matt Embry joining us here on the show today. And again, tonight is the premiere, and I'll throw a little clip, before as Matt leaves, because the paparazzi are going to be everywhere. So maybe tonight, maybe Matt's walking in and Angelina Jolie's going, "Oh, hello, Matt," with that fake accent, which it really turns me on. You never know what's going to happen. But for Caitlyn Jenner, you talk about... So Caitlyn gets into this cab with the paparazzi, but trust me, the result, that was all Bruce. Sorry to throw that in, but this is what happened.
You're a big tipper. Oh. Watch out, she's blind now. Okay.
This is me.
Thinking about it, and here comes Bruce. Boom! All right, get rid of those. I don't care about those bronze. Yeah, we don't care about. Yeah, whatever.
It's like ombre teal. It gets.
Just because what's her name Swift was on there doesn't mean you had to keep the camera going. Roast beef. I saw what you did there. I was like, no, let's get what's her name off, and you're like, oh no, I'm a little slow on that.
Where's the take button? I don't know.
But how about Caitlyn Jenner running them over? No, that was all Bruce. Yeah, trust me. We have a bunch of things to catch up on before we go.
Want to go top 300?
Yeah. Okay. Here's
Rusty,
the thing.
Rusty, pick up your mic too.
TSN did its projection, and I think it's only centers, I believe, correct?
It's only centers,
It's only centers. The top 300. And we go through some of these lists that ESPN or Fox or wherever they come from, taking a look at fantasy on where they believe this is going to show up. So let's go back to our unbelievably epic music, which I have stolen. Here we go. And this is the projection in terms of points for centers in the NHL this year. Dave, what do you think of this list? Is it close?
I'm going to give it about a C+ maybe. I mean, it's easy. A blind squirrel could figure out Connor McDavid, Sidney Crosby 1-2. Then it kind of gets a little sketchy for me because I don't have Austin Matthews at number 3. I think he's going to have a nice season. I think eventually he will be number 3. In fact, eventually he might be number 2. But man, they're missing the boat on a lot of these guys, and you kind of look at it. The first glaring mistake is Mark Scheifele at number 12 is just ridiculous. This guy is the best, and let me say this again, the best center in the Western Conference outside of Connor McDavid.
I'm sorry, what team does he play for?
Winnipeg Jets.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So I look at that and I go, man, and then Leon Draisaitl, I would actually put him in a top 5 to 7 range. I don't know what he's floating around at number 17. That's crazy. Other misses, swings and misses. I have Malkin a little bit higher. I have Sagan a little bit higher. I have Matthews actually probably around the number 5 spot. Maybe 4 if he has that kind of season. 4, 5, 6 is fair. Jack Eichel, by the way, if Jack Eichel stays healthy, Jack Eichel will flirt with the top 5 spot. This guy was lights out as soon as he returned from his high ankle sprain, and actually his second half was better than anybody's in the NHL, and he played for the Buffalo Sabres, which had nothing to play for, and he still produced. Imagine if they actually do something like they're supposed to do, and we've heard that before. Look at your goaltending, Buffalo. It sucks, and that's the reason why you're not going to do anything. Other than that, I mean, sure.
Do we think Robin Lehner, is he...
Well, the thing is, I had so much hope for Robin Lehner when he was,
we all did.
Was
Everyone
an Ottawa
did.
Senator. Big goaltender. He comes from a goaltending factory overseas, basically, and he hasn't really panned out. And I think a lot of it is in between the ears. It just doesn't seem to have the focus, the dedication, and all that kind of stuff that goes mentally into the game of goaltending. They'll soon find out. They'll have those answers made. I think this is a make it or break it year for Robin Lehner in a Buffalo Sabres uniform.
Also, I think in the league, Dave, as you know, as always, to declare yourself as a number 1, you can't do that. Just ask James Reimer.
Yeah.
They'll tell you if you're a number 1 or not, and I think he is flirting in that area.
Yeah, he is. Like, he might end up being a serviceable backup if we're talking about him in 3 or 4 years, but I don't think you want that if you're Robin Lehner, a top prospect with the Sens at the time. I would drop on this list statistically a Patrice Bergeron, great center, maybe the best checking center in the league. I would drop Ryan Getzlaf because I don't think offensive production is there anymore. It's sad how Claude Giroux is dropped, but you know what? He's kind of deserved it. That's just the way it is. I would drop Jeff Carter a little bit from the number 13 spot. Jonathan Taves is a fantastic center. Would love to have him on my team anytime. Be the captain of my team, in fact. But scoring-wise, that production value is starting to dip a little bit as we go on.
I'm sorry, where's Jonathan Taves from? What province is he from?
Manitoba, the outstanding city of Winnipeg.
Looking for Manitoba.
Yes. Ryan Kessler would not be on my top 20. Ryan Johansson out of Nashville isn't part of my top 20. And outside of that, you know what? We'll see what happens on the injury front with a guy like Steven Stamkos, because he could be top 3, top 4, or he could be 15, 16 because the guy will, go to 7-Eleven for a Slurpee and sprain an ankle on his way.
Roast beef. What you got? All Leafs or something? Are the first four all
I got
Leafs?
Bozak,
You Leaf
Kadri,
lover?
and Matthews. 1,
Leaf
2,
lover.
3.
Well, Mike, actually, Dave Keelan is my. No, what do you got going? Oh, is it not on? I can't believe I muted your microphone. Why was that?
Weird.
What happened there? Okay, roast beef.
Oh, definitely Matthews 1, Bozak 2, Kadri 3.
See?
Yeah, there you go. That's bang on.
No, but I don't know. I kind of agree. I don't think I'd have Matthews at 3 just yet. Especially, like, this is talking fantasy points, I believe. It was their fantasy projections. And they project Tyler Seguin to have better points in everything except goals, like better stats. So I don't get how you can rank him below Matthews. I think he'll definitely be top 5 this year. I agree with that. Mark Scheifele needs to come up. And like you said, Dave, guys like Patrice Bergeron, Jonathan Toews, they might be good centers that you want on your team, but if they're not putting up the points, then they're not worth these fantasy projections.
You might notice that Paul Smith, otherwise known as Smitty, is in the crowd here today. He's the agent to the Stars. When we have big agent. I don't. Are there a lot of Montreal Canadiens on that list? Because
there is no Canadians.
I don't know if you got to score goals to win there, Smitty. So I don't know.
Yeah. Jonathan Drouin will have fun, but he's kind of going to be a little bit of a helicopter out there, no wings, right? So you just play him at center
that's good.
ice.
That's really good.
Right?
Yeah, I like that.
And Alex Galchenyuk has to start proving where first of all, where are you going to put him in the lineup? He's a center, is he a winger? They seem to be screwing with him. But you know what? Carey Price has to win 50 games. And defensively speaking, they have to support Carey Price if the Canadiens are going to do anything. Because offensively speaking, let's just say take a lot of unders in the goal-scoring department when it comes to the Montreal Canadiens.
So, again, glass half full, I think. Even if you don't like Montreal, you got some gambling tips.
That's true.
By the way, when I go to, I've been like twice in the new building, and it's hard for me to stay in there when Chez Paris, Super Sex, Dirty Larry's, or whatever it is around the corner.
Dirty Larry's? I haven't heard that one.
Yeah.
What would Dirty Larry's be called in French?
Dirty Larry.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Papa Tents, it's around the corner. Great place. Don't eat the food. Alrighty. So tomorrow we have the big announcement. I promise it's going to be. I know I keep saying it's not my fault. It's not my fault. God, I do so much for people and they do nothing for me.
That's what I was going to say.
But tomorrow will be, trust me, that's the big day. Thursday's big too.
What?
Oh, yeah.
Friday going to be big too?
Yeah, it will be. Yeah.
3 big days.
Yeah. Big guest on Friday.
Okay.
You want to go do karate in the garage?
Paul Jones in studio with us tomorrow, by the way.
Yes. Matt Embry. Living Proof is the name of his film. It's great having the directors in, too. What an awesome guy.
Yeah, he was fantastic.
Awesome guy. So, once again, that's tonight, the premiere, and then we'll see where it goes after this. I mean, these are the kinds of things, too, that end up on Netflix, which I kind of hope for. Also, as you mentioned, tomorrow, Paul Jones, play-by-play guy for the Raptors. We'll talk a little NBA, I'm sure, Toronto Raptors. Then, of course, on Thursday, Victor Newman comes in. And, by the way, I have the craziest announcement this week as well regarding that particular name. You're going to freak out. It's going to be good. You can trust me. I'm the good hands people. Angelina Jolie.